Welcome, Comadres, and welcome to another episode of Comadreando. I'm your host, Marcy, and we have an awesome guest today. Her name is LaQuista, and I will let her introduce herself. Who are you?
Hi, Marcy. Thank you so much for having me. So I am LaQuista Erinna. I am a licensed therapist, entrepreneur, and an autism mom.
Awesome, thank you. So the way I got connected with LaQuista, I always do like a little intro of how I know my guests. Um, I She went viral. Her son went viral with his barber, and I started following her. I saw that she was a fellow autism mom, and basically, she aligns a lot with the purpose of the podcast, which is bringing awareness. Not only that, but also helping moms take care of themselves. Looking into wellness and all of that, and which is very hard for moms of kids with special needs to do because we're always, giving 120% of ourselves or even more. So I wanted to bring her on the show to pick her brain and see where she's at. So today's topic is an autism parent's journey. So the reason why the topic came about is that we often forget to highlight these amazing parents that are doing the work and helping other people. And, I feel very strongly about giving flowers to the heroes that we have every day now. So let's just get a couple of logistics out of the way. What is your child's diagnosis?
So, my son Jackson, I may refer to him as Jack Jack at times, but he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder just before his third birthday.
Okay. So what was it that you noticed? When was it that you noticed that your son was quote unquote different?
Yeah, it was kind of difficult for me because I have an older son. So my oldest son, he is like 10, 11 years older than Jackson. So I was kind of out of the game when it comes to like having a little baby. So when Jackson came along, you know, it was like typical baby. I'm a lot older. At this point, I'm what they consider advanced maternal age, which is what, 35, 36 at the time. And, so I'm
Which is
like,
not that advanced,
I
but sure.
know, but, my doctor was like, okay, you're high risk. You're advanced maternal age, which kind of hurt my feelings. So I already went into this pregnancy, you know, high risk. I had like preeclampsia, which I got after he was born. And,
Mm.
I just thought, okay, this pregnancy is different. I'm a lot older, and then with him being a baby, typical baby, he didn't really have like any illnesses or anything that I kind of picked up on, with babies, all babies are different. And then, of course, like I said, I'm kind of out of the game at this point. I'm trying to relearn these things. But as he
Hmm.
started, getting those milestone ages, I started noticing things like he wasn't talking. So at one, most kids they're, at least saying mama or dad or trying to form words. Jackson wasn't doing
Hmm.
any of that. He would very he would kind of fixate on certain things. So going from one to two, he started walking, regular age, crawling, all of those things. Like that was fine. But for me, it was really like the speech and his communication. He wasn't talking
Mm.
at two. He still didn't have any words. He had maybe one word, which was hot. And I started freaking out. I'm like, okay, what's going on
Hmm.
here? And it wasn't actually until I went on a business lunch with a friend. So I'm a licensed therapist, and I had started my private practice. Tired of being kind of like a stay-at-home mom after leaving the military,
Hmm.
and I met this other mom. She was a nurse practitioner, and we were having this business lunch to kind of talk about how we could work together, helping veterans. And somehow at this lunch, she started talking about her sons who are, at the time, like 18, and one was like in his 20s. And she
Mm-hmm.
was saying how her son was diagnosed with autism, and she had missed so many signs along the way, and she was blaming herself being a nurse practitioner. And this lady starts breaking down crying. We had only
Oh my
talked a couple
gosh.
times like on the phone, so I didn't know her that well, but she like broke down crying at this lunch. And I'm trying to console her, but at the same time, I'm like freaking out, like, oh my gosh, like some of the things she's saying, like, am I missing signs? Like, am I? I'm so sorry.
And that's Jackson.
Yes, that is Jackson.
That's okay.
He just slid a note under the door.
It's okay. Do you want to check the note? It's all right.
Yes, hold on.
We can pick back up where you left off.
Go ahead. Oh my gosh, he just. I told him, I said, Jackson, I need you to stay downstairs and be quiet, like while we have the interview. And of course, he comes running up here. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. We can pick up where we left off. So 1, 2, 3, action. So the lady, your friend started crying at the business dinner, not the business dinner, at the business lunch, and you started thinking like, oh, Jackson has some of these signs that she was saying.
Yeah. So when she started crying, I'm trying to console her, but inside I'm kind of like freaking out, like, what if I'm missing some signs? At this point, he was like a little older than 2 years old. And some of the stuff she said, he wasn't at that point yet. So she was saying like something with tying the shoes and just, like the speech delay and just certain things, like her son would be fixated on certain objects. And, that really kind of got me because Jackson, he loved puzzles, and he would, stare off into space and just really be hyper focused on anything, couldn't get his attention, and started having like these horrible tantrums. And so once, she kind of calmed down, I don't think I left the parking lot before I called Jackson's pediatrician and tried to make an appointment. So we get this appointment, and I bring him in within like a couple days, and she's doing an examination. She's asking me all these questions. If you're an autism parent, the million questions they ask you. And I'm like feeling bad because I don't know like all these milestones, like at what age did he flip over? What age did he crawl? Like all of these things. But as she's examining him, like she had like a character on her stethoscope, and she noticed he was like kind of fixated on that character. Like he wasn't paying attention. She was trying to get his attention. And so at that point, she said, I'm going to put the referral in. We had TRI-CARE at the time. So, military, you have to jump through like a gazillion hoops. But she said it's going to be a wait list, 6 months of wait list. And I'm like freaking out. Like, what am I supposed to do in 6 months? But she told me about early intervention services. We were kind of new to New Jersey. We had left from North Carolina, came to New Jersey, and she was like, well, call this number. This is early intervention. He probably qualifies for that. You can do that in the meantime. And so that's what we did, call early intervention and got in with them while we waited the 6 months to get him in to C.H.R.I.V.E, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, to get him diagnosed, evaluated.
Wow. That's like resonates a lot with my story. I don't know, but like when Aiden, he was talking and then he stopped talking. So that was like the biggest red flag for me. And then when I go to the pediatrician, my pediatrician wasn't as good as yours. She was like, oh, maybe you should wait. And I've been working with kids my whole life, and I have a bunch of little cousins and stuff, and I'm like, once kids start talking, they don't stop. Like, that's not normal. So I had to like really push for that. But I'm glad that he was able to get the early intervention. How was it? Like, what services did they give him at the beginning? I know speech.
Mhm.
Anything else that they
Yeah.
included?
So he got speech, he got OT, and he couldn't officially get ABA therapy at that point, but they were just amazing. The therapist would come out to our house pretty much 3, 4 times a week. Um, I hadn't really set up my practice yet, so I had a flexible schedule, so she would come work with him with speech, also work on behaviors, and then work with the family. So, you know, at the time I was married and we had like 2 teenagers in the home. And so, really trying to get everybody kind of, on the same page when it comes to like when he has tantrums, when he's refusing to eat, some of these things like strategies we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And we continue with early intervention. He was going to age out at age 3, but because he was getting early intervention, they said he qualified for pre-K. And so we just started
Mm-hmm.
prepping for pre-K. And through being persistent, no one, I never thought I would be like a advocate or anything like that. But when you
Mm-hmm.
have a child who has special needs, like you really have to kind of pick up that torch. And we would call like every day, hey, do you have a cancellation? Can we get in earlier? What can we do? Like, we're a
Mm-hmm.
military family. I'm like throwing every sympathy card. And finally, they had an opening where they could see us earlier than the 6 months. And we took it. We took him down to get evaluated, which, oh my gosh, that was its own process. But
Mm-hmm.
we got his diagnosis just before he turned 3 years old, and he was getting ready to go into pre-K at the same time. So it was pretty good timing.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I'm glad. I feel like the process is a little different in New York. He was he got diagnosed, and the initial diagnosis was PDD-NOS, which is pervasive developmental disorder, not otherwise specified. And then eventually he had got the autism diagnosis, but I had to push for that because in the school they don't really do
Mhm.
the evaluations. I had to get a neuropsychological evaluation, and the neuropsychologist was the one that gave him the autism diagnosis. So what was it like with your family? Like, not necessarily the nuclear family, like your sons and your ex-husband, but like with the rest of your family. Like, did you feel like you were supported through the process, or
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that. I think my family was being as supportive as they knew how to be, and that is reassuring me that nothing's wrong with my child. And I say that because there's nothing wrong with him, but culturally, a lot of Black
mm-hmm,
families, African American families, like we don't necessarily trust like medical doctors, medical professionals, and they're very quick
that's how it
to
is.
very quick to give a diagnosis. And so they're kind of leery, especially like my mom. um, she would always be there to support me and tell me, don't worry about it, he's going to start talking. Once he starts talking, he's never going to stop. Like, there's nothing wrong with my baby. And I appreciate her being like supportive, but coming to grips with like the diagnoses, like that was like a whole thing, like for me to kind of wrap my head around. So, being comfortable enough to kind of tell my family, okay, this is what the doctor says, his diagnosis is, and this is what we're doing moving forward. So that it was kind of tricky, but overall, everybody was supportive.
I love that. So I'm going to get a little serious with
Okay.
you. So, what are some of your fears or reservations as a parent of a child, of a young boy who will eventually be a young man with autism.
Whew.
I know there's a lot of complications
Yes.
because, like, we're people of color.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing. And then having a special need is another,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a single mom, raising two black boys, and I always say, like, when they're young, they're so cute and everybody loves them. When they grow up, everybody fears them. And so, like with my oldest son, he'll be 17 and he's like 6'3". Most people think
mm-hmm,
he's like my boyfriend or my husband or something because he is so big, but he's so quiet and so meek, wouldn't, hurt a fly. Now with Jackson, and I've heard stories of, people with autism being, attacked
yes,
by the police, and, he makes certain moves. And, I'm always like, especially when we're out in public, like, okay, society says you must act this way, even though we know, I mean, your children. Like, you can't be expected
mm-hmm,
to necessarily be still for 8 hours a day and listen to, exactly what a parent or an adult may tell you. So, yeah, my fear is that, someone's going to look at my son, think that he's a threat, and take action against him, which could cost him his life. We had this incident. So Jackson entered kindergarten this year, and let me tell you, from the first day of school, I got a phone call from the school. You need to come to the school. I'm like, what? This is like, I mean, we're like 3 hours into the school day. I called, they said, well, he's showing out. You need to come get him. I'm like, what? Like, this is the first day. So I go in already on the defensive. I'm
mm-hmm.
like, what is going on here? And they're like, okay, you need to come get him. We don't know him. We don't know what he's like. So we just need you to come get him. Well, did you read his IEP? You knew beforehand, like, what his challenges were, which one is transitioning. Like, he's going from pre-K to big school,
Mm-hmm.
these whole new people. Like, it's a lot for him to take in, and your first response is to call me to come get him. Well, we ended up kind of, to a point where they were like, okay, he's calmed down now. He can stay if you feel comfortable, which, I talked to him. He wanted to stay at school. And come to find out, the reason he, quote unquote, had this tantrum is they were kind of showing the kids, like, okay, this is the media center, this is the cafeteria. When they went to the cafeteria, they was like, okay, this is the cafeteria, this is where you're going to eat lunch. He thought, okay, it's time to eat lunch. And so he
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
realize, okay, we're just showing you, we're going to come back later. So he refused to leave. And then a teacher tried to touch him or grab him, and he ran off. Any child,
I can't.
especially a child on the spectrum, would probably have a similar response. And all of these teachers who, you know, are aggressively coming at him, he's not going to calm down. And so once we got that figured out, I'm thinking, okay, I get it. It's the first day of school. But then the third day of school, the fifth day of school, it just kept going on and on. Like, the teacher was literally sending me messages during the day. And I'm like, listen, lady, like, I have clients. I know I work from home, but that doesn't mean that I can sit here and go back and forth with you all day. What is the issue? What is the problem? I felt like they just didn't want to be bothered with him. So eventually, I get a phone call from the teacher. She said Jackson bit her and he knocked over some stuff. And I'm like,
Oh man.
right, like, what? Well, what happened? No one could tell me exactly what happened. They just suggested that we have a meeting. They want to evaluate him. That's all she told me. Jackson comes home on the bus that day. a note in his book bag saying not to return to school for like 2, 3 days because he was suspended. Like kindergarten suspended.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna let you finish your story there, and I'm gonna get into
I was
that.
like, I was just so I like text the bus driver. I was like, "Hey, don't come get Jackson in the morning. He's suspended." The bus driver was like, "What, Jackson?" He's like, "Jackson is the smartest kid I have on the bus. I don't I was like, "I don't understand. You can come get him Monday. Apparently, he's suspended." I was not a happy camper. The following, like when we had the meeting, I'm thinking, okay, you're about to tell me what happened, this evaluation. I'm sitting in this meeting, Zoom. My ex husband is there, I'm there, and it's like 5 administrators and teachers. And I'm like, what is going on? And they're talking, oh, Jackson is wonderful. He's so smart, this. And but we think he needs to be moved to this program for kids that have disciplinary problems. I was like, wait, what? Like, what? First of
What?
all, what kind of meeting is this? Like, I'm confused. So it turned into a whole thing where they moved him to a different school. Like, it it was just a
Mm-mm.
it was horrible, like worst experience. But I'm like, I don't want my son to be with anyone who, one, doesn't have patience, and two, who doesn't want to be bothered, because he can feel your energy. And if you don't want to be bothered with him, you're not going to have a
Yes.
good time with him. Like, he feels
Mm-hmm.
it. Like, when I'm upset, he's upset. So if you're coming at him with all this nervous energy and you don't want to be bothered, he's going to give it to you. That's just how
Mm-hmm.
it is.
Let me tell you, Aiden, I get upset at him if he does something bad, and then I'm like, I'm upset with you. He's like, and I'm upset with mommy. Um, no, but seriously, it's like it's incredible. I mean, when he got evaluated, when they made the IEP, did they say that he needs to be in a smaller setting, or he is? I feel like he's okay to be in a regular class, like based on what I've seen and how, like, the videos and everything, and how he behaves.
Mhm.
What was the in the IEP? What was the setting that they recommended
Yeah,
for him?
that he would be in a mixed classroom. So
An
mhm,
ICT, right?
right.
Okay, so yeah, like if he's in an ICT class, there should have been a special education teacher in there in the first place, right? And the special education teacher should have read the IEP, number one. She should have, or he, I don't know if it was a man, but the person should have been aware of strategies to use. And it's just really, like, it's bananas to me, the fact that they made you go through all of that. How many months did that last?
How many months at what last?
The with the whole problem with the school until they switched him to the new
Oh
school.
gosh, so school started, I would say, by 2 months before they moved him. Like, it was
Mm-mm.
ridiculous. And my my first option was, okay, I don't even want to deal with like the school system. I want to pull him out. Oh, you don't have that option anymore, virtual, unless you just completely withdraw him and you're basically on your own, which I
Wow.
couldn't do at the time. Um, it when I tell you, like, I wrote a Facebook post because I had to process everything. Like, I was just going through
Mm-hmm.
all the emotions, and so many people reached out to me like, hey, like, I'm an advocate, I can help you, like, this is what I do, blah blah blah. Like, people who I'm friends with, or they knew somebody. I knew like lots of principals, just not in this school system. So we were in a different school
Mm-hmm.
system. And looking back, it's probably the best thing that happened to him. Like, I hate it happened the way it did, but where he's at is so much better now. They still didn't do
Mm-hmm.
what they were supposed to do properly. They violated his rights. And,
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely could push the issue, but I think he needs to be surrounded by adults who love him, who have patience, who actually enjoy their job and, are going to make sure that he's getting what he needs, and he has that now. Like, I was very confrontational with like the new assistant principal. Like, she was in the meeting where they told me this. Like, she
Mm-hmm.
called me when he started at the new school. She called me and I immediately had an attitude. And she was like, I just wanted to let you know, like, we absolutely love Jackson. Like, he's
Oh
doing
my God.
great. I was like, oh, okay. Like, I get like PTSD every time I get a phone call from the
Yes.
school, but he's doing so well. Like, because he has teachers who, one, are competent, and two, um, actually have the patience to know that, okay, he may go through some challenges, but Jackson is really smart. He's actually doing work above his grade level, which I think he was just bored. Like,
Yeah.
Jackson knew a lot of the stuff they were teaching, like in because he was in pre-K since 3. So by the
Mm-hmm.
time he got to kindergarten, he knows
He's
all
like,
this
whatever.
stuff.
I know all this
Yeah.
stuff.
So I think
Yeah.
that was a big part of it. And yeah, he's doing pretty good now. He has like his days. I think he's to the point now where he says school is boring. Um, he's very artistic, so I think he enjoys that a
Yes.
lot more.
Yeah. I love his drawings and how he's very expressive, and he's just I would love to have a student like that in my class, like, honestly, because, like, to your point, like, it's very noticeable when people love their profession. You know what I'm saying? Like, when you meet a teacher that really enjoys what they do and that they're really dedicated to their craft and not passing judgment on the child and trying to figure them out, it makes our time as parents very different. I honestly, like, I want to say I kind of went through that when my son started junior high school, like 2 years ago. I was getting phone calls all the time. They're like, "Oh, Aiden's not listening to the teachers. He's doing this and that." And then Aiden also has issues with transitions. So he was acting out, right? He would want to kind of be on the computer. He was like trying to get on YouTube, and they're like, you can't watch this at school. And then, like, the thing is, like, they weren't really trying to get to know him, and he's very similar to Jackson in the
Mhm.
sense that if he knows that you're not um dealing with him in that way, and he feels your energy is off, he's gonna give you that same
Mhm.
energy back. He's not gonna be like, oh my God, hey. He's gonna kind of be like, whatever, I don't want to hang out with you
Right.
either. You know what I'm saying? So it's very it's nice when you have a team of people that actually want to help you and help your child, and that you feel that their intention is good, because it just makes for the experience that much better for you.
Yeah.
So I love what you're doing with the fact that you're a therapist is very important, and then the fact that you have a small business that, you're talking about self-care and motherhood.
Mhm.
So can you just inform the audience a little bit about the work that you do regarding self-care and motherhood with your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned before, I'm a licensed therapist, and I got into private practice, which gave me the flexibility to kind of be there with Jackson, when I was married, while my husband was active duty at the time. And so we would kind of switch off because, trying to find daycare for someone, who has special needs, that was a whole nother thing. And so
Mm-hmm.
it offered me the flexibility when we moved to Georgia, right before the pandemic. Um, I just continued my work via telehealth. And so I was seeing clients, and so the pandemic is a whole nother thing. It actually probably saved my business because in the transition, I had a physical office in New Jersey, and I was flying
Mm-hmm.
back and forth to see my clients like every couple weeks. Um, when the pandemic hit, everybody was forced to stay at home. And so I was
Mm-hmm.
able to actually do like telehealth at that point. And the amount of clients who came, like, it was like somebody opened the floodgates. I remember specifically, like, I probably had like 2 or 3 clients I was seeing back from New Jersey. So wasn't really making any money. One day I checked my email, and I
Mm-hmm.
probably had like 50 emails in one day within like a few hours of requests for appointments. I'm like, what? Did someone like make an announcement or something? And everybody's like at home dealing with like all their issues, all their stuff, and getting into
Mm-hmm.
therapy. And so I was working really, really hard. But what I noticed was I primarily work with women, professional women, many of whom are moms. But what I noticed across the board, whether it was woman, man, non binary, black, white, um, everybody was just doing a lot, especially women. Like, we take care of
Mm-hmm.
everybody, we don't focus on ourselves, which, in the pandemic, you're kind of forced to deal with your own issues. And that's why people are in therapy. And so I was like, you know what? Like, self care is what really kind of saved me. Like, going through like a divorce, having a special needs child, like, I was in like this deep, deep depression, and it was really me focusing on one, like my mental health, my physical
Mm-hmm.
health, and just taking care of myself so that I could, be a good mommy to Jackson and Jordan. And so I had this idea. I was like, okay, I'm gonna, help women kind of prioritize self care. I think for women, we're always, taking care of others. It's so important that we take care of ourselves. And so I started Well and Fit Living, which is a subscription box company, but we have more than just subscription boxes, and it's a self care box. So each month, subscribers get at least 5 items to help them kind of focus on their self care. And so it falls in the categories of like fitness, wellness, mental health, things of that nature. And then I just started creating other products like my therapy cards, and then like my journal, because your physical health is so important. Like, you have to, keeping up with these kiddos. Jackson, I don't know where he gets his
Mm-hmm.
energy from. Like, he's like all over
Girl.
the place. I was like, you know what? This, I'm a woman of a certain age, I cannot keep up. But it became like a passion for me to really kind of work on my body, get my mind right. Just started putting me first. And I know it's so hard. People think, okay, I'm being selfish, but it's more than just spas and pedicures. It's about setting healthy boundaries. It's about, knowing what to say yes and no to. It's about paying attention to the people you hang around, what you're eating, what you're consuming. Are you being active? And so that has kind of been like my mission, especially going into like this new year. And what I realized when this video went viral, like, parents from all over started DMing me, and they're burnt out. And I get it. Like, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for, one, my village, two, me taking a time out to take care of myself, I'd probably be laid out somewhere. So I really want parents to know that, hey, you have to take care of yourself in order to take care of your kiddo. So that's what I'm trying to do.
I love that. No, seriously, it's so important. And I feel like as a parent of a child with special needs, you're always on, right?
Mhm.
It's very hard to kind of set those boundaries and be like, I need a minute right now. Because a lot of the time you feel guilty
Mhm.
about, well, I used to feel
Yeah.
guilty about taking a minute. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Because I got to a point, like, Aiden's 13 now, Jackson's 6 or
Yeah. He's
5.
6. Uh-huh.
Jackson is 6, but let me tell you, when he was little, I didn't really take time for myself, and I found myself being burnt out and like at burning the candle from both ends, and that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help Aiden, it doesn't help me. So I feel like part of the mission of this is kind of informing moms that it is okay to take your time, and self-care is important. We need to prioritize that, because there's no way that we can pour from an empty cup. I've said this before on the show, and I feel like it's intrinsic to us being women. So going into the vein of self-care, what does self-care look like for you?
So for me, first it started with me just setting boundaries. And I realized this through years of therapy, even though I'm a therapist, that I was a bit of a people pleaser. And so I would often say yes to things when I knew my schedule was already booked. I didn't want to do it, but I don't want to be a bad person, or I don't want, people to think that I'm mean. And so learning to really say no to the things that don't serve me, that I don't have time for, and saying yes to only the things that are in alignment with what I want to do and the things that matter to me. So that was like a huge thing, setting healthy boundaries with my family, friends, business associates, everybody. And I think the biggest step for me was quitting a position that I had, which was a toxic work environment. Um, I took a job to kind of get myself back where I needed to be while I was still doing my private practice, but it was just so draining to go into that place, and be around that negative, toxic energy. So I worked really hard to be able to kind of walk away, and I felt amazing. And so I get up most mornings, I work out. I don't always eat exactly what I'm supposed to eat, but I try to pay attention to the things that,
Mhm.
make me feel good, that are good for me. I definitely go and get my pedicures, my manicures. I like to travel, even though COVID is like, nope, none of that. But I just like having fun. I like doing stuff with my kids, having that time. And I like my alone time too. So
Mhm.
Jackson, he knows, like, okay, when mommy says I need to take a nap, like, he pretty much has free reign. Like, I'm not gonna like I'm not gonna fuss at him. Like, I give him a stack of paper, his sketch pens, and all of these things, and he can just draw. And my oldest son, he helps out a lot, like when I'm really down and just exhausted, he'll come get his brother and take him in his room, and they'll play video games. And so I really appreciate that. But yeah, it's just doing the things that I want to do and not feeling guilty about not doing certain things or not fitting a mold that someone feels like I should fit.
I love that. So I always ask this of all the moms. So why is it important? Why do you feel it's important to have a balance between all the roles we play as women?
I think for so many years, women, especially women of color, like, we have this cape that we wear, and it's exhausting. um, I think
Yes.
Michelle Obama said it best when she said that no, you can't have it all, at least not at the same time. Something is going to suffer. Like, you can't be like a perfect mom, a perfect wife, a perfect CEO, like all of these things. Like, you only have so much to give. And if you spread yourself too thin, it's like, what do you have to give? Like, if you as a parent are stretched too thin, you're no good for anyone. Like, you're half doing it with your kid, you're half doing it with your job. And I know it's times where you may have to shift gears and, okay, I have this project, I really need to put my all into that. So maybe my kids will eat takeout for a week and it happens and you may feel a
Mm-hmm.
little guilty, but let that go. Like, I think the biggest thing that people kind of struggle with is forgiving ourselves, giving ourselves grace. So, let go of all of that. Like, it doesn't really matter. Do what makes you happy. It's so important for like your life, your livelihood, like just your sanity. Nobody wants to
Mm-hmm.
feel this constant pressure that you have to perform or keep up with all of these things. It's not sustainable. It needs, at least not in the long run. And I know, you know, for many years, like, everyone told us, okay, you have to hustle, team no sleep, like all of these things. Like, no, get you some rest, rejuvenate, go out there, kill it, do what you got to do, and rinse and repeat. Get some rest, take care of yourself, fill your cup, spend time with your kids, your loved ones, do all the things, but do it in a pace and a moderation that works for you.
I feel like now, like people are awakening more and being more conscious of things, but there's also like people out there that have that toxic positivity and they're like, that hustle mindset, like go, go, go. I don't rest. And after, I have a 9 to 5 and then that 5 to 9, and then I'm like doing this and that, whatever. And it's, yes, there is time to do all the things, but also you need time to rest. Like I feel like I'm a large advocate, a huge advocate for naps, man.
Oh,
Like
yes, love naps.
naps are essential. People that say that they can nap, I don't really trust them.
Right, what you
I'm just
doing?
like, why are you not napping? So LaQuista, I'm gonna have a little personal question. So now that you're divorced,
Hmm.
have you started dating yet?
So I was dating, and that's another thing, like dating when you have, like, first of all,
Oh, girl.
child, let me tell
I know,
you,
I know.
this new dating, like online, and I think the funniest meme I saw where they said, the dating pool, I heard there's pee in the pool. There's not only pee, there's poop, there's like old
Baby
prophylactics and
drugs.
needles. It's disgusting out there.
Oh my gosh.
But I was divorced like a year before I really seriously kind of went into like trying to date.
Mm-hmm.
And I met someone online, and you know, it was hard having that conversation. One, that I have two kids, single mom. And then two, that, hey, my son has autism, but it was to the point where I felt, okay, this is someone I feel like we're going to be exclusive. I'm ready to introduce him to my kids. Yes, we had that conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it went well. I'm no longer dating though, but it wasn't a bad experience. It just wasn't what I want. Like, I have no interest in getting married anytime soon. I'm just focusing on me and my children and my business. So, we were
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like in two different spaces. So I'm good with not dating at the moment. I'm good. I'm not ready to go back out there. Sharks and everything out there. I'm not ready.
Oh man, it is tough, man. Like I feel like we're not the same age, but we're like close enough in age that it's just, I don't know. It's too the dating pool now. Like you said, there's a lot of not so good things out there, but also like as single mothers and then moms of children with special needs, it's like we need to be hyper vigilant
Mhm.
about who we allow in our lives and the type of people that we let around our kids. And I talk a lot about like dating too, because I am a single mom and I've been divorced like 12 years already.
Wow.
But yeah, like it took me a while to start dating again,
Mhm.
because that was like when my son first got diagnosed and stuff. But then when I started dating, and it was just like, kind of like setting myself up to date with a purpose, you
Mhm.
know, and to make sure that I know what I want, so that I'm attracting the right type of people into my life, not just people that are there to you know do whatever it is that people are doing nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, so you told us a little bit about Jackson already. um we know he loves to do art. He's very outgoing. So tell us a little bit more about him, and like who he is and what makes him sparkle.
I I always jokingly say Jackson is my no limit soldier. If he was my first child, he would be an only child because he keeps me on my toes. Like Jackson is funny. He's hilarious. Like he's outgoing, but he tries to act like he's kind of shy. So he does like this quiet whisper thing now where he
Mm-hmm.
whispers everything to me to tell whomever is talking to him. But he's just a very fun loving kid, like high energy. He loves art, he loves Sonic, Mario, YouTube. Like he'll sit and record himself on the phone like he has a YouTube channel. So I've been considering allowing him to do have a channel. He's just I don't know. It's just something about him. Like some of the things he says, I'm like, are you really 6? So he talks to me like like
Yeah,
he's
they're
a
like wise beyond their
right.
years.
Like now he does this. I don't know where he hears this. He probably got it from me. So he'll talk to me. He's like, "Does that make sense?" And I'm like, "What? Why you keep saying that to me? Like, do you think I'm dumb or something? Does that make sense?" And then
I
if
can't.
I tell him something, like if he wants something, and I'm like, "No, Jackson," he's like, "But that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't." I was like, "Why doesn't it make any sense to you? Because I told you no." So he will go back and forth with me, like about anything. Like he's just so
I can't with
funny.
him.
He said the craziest stuff comes out of his mouth, and I always
Oh
said
my
like
gosh.
I should have video cameras like in my home, in my car at all times because you never know what is coming out of
Oh
Jackson's
my
mouth.
god. Yeah.
And for him to kind of go viral, it just tickles me because I'm like, see, I knew it. Like as long as I've been trying to become like an influencer on social media, I post my son and it goes crazy. Like Jesus.
I'm dying to have your barber on the show. I actually interviewed another barber. He's from Ohio, and he's very much, he's like, he has Noble Barbershop, and he does these events like once a month, that he has kids with special needs come into the shop on his day off. He comes in and he gives them haircuts, and he's very similar to your barber in the sense that he does like whatever it is that the
Mhm.
kid needs to be able to give them that cut. And the program that he has, he has people sponsor the haircuts for the parents, which is nice too. But I definitely want to bring her on, because that's part of our village, as parents of children with special needs, like people that understand our kids
Mhm.
and get it and are patient with them. That's like something that is like, it can't be measured. It's not like there's nothing tangible that we could measure it with,
Right.
but it means so much, and it brings so much value to our lives.
Yeah.
But go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. Yeah, absolutely. And with Ree, she really has become a part of our family. And we're actually trying to do something. We're trying to put something together for Autism Awareness Month, like an
Okay.
event or something. just like with this kind of blowing up, like the idea just kind of
Mm-hmm.
came to us. So we're like trying to find a space and be able to have parents come in and probably like some other barbers to get like some tips and, be able to do stuff for like the
That's
kids.
cool.
Yeah.
I would love to come. Let me know, because in April I'm off anyway, since I teach. But yeah, definitely let's connect with that, and then I'll give you the information
Okay.
for Vernon, from Ohio. So maybe we could all come down, and that would be like a pretty dope event, I
Oh
feel.
yeah.
And with that, we're gonna end the episode how I usually end it, which is follow me at Comadreando Pod on IG and Dr. LaQuista on IG at.
LaQuista Erinna.
And if you have any questions whatsoever, if you want Dr. LaQuista back or the barber, the famous barber on, let me know. Send me a Comadre-Gram via email at comadreando@escthenetwork.com or slide up into my DMs. Thank you for spending the afternoon with your comadres and have a happy, happy Sunday. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.